Hey, it's your boy Easy, and on today's episode of Easy Opens, we're going to open up something a little different. I was thinking maybe my journal that has a list of favorite records of mine that I discovered last year. Well, actually, that came out last year. And I also happened to have discovered. Did I say discovered? I said discovered. Goodness gracious. Let's try that again. That happens to have the list of my 14 favorite records that came out last year, 2022. And yeah, I just want to start broadening the channel scope and talking about some records and maybe even some books that I'm reading and things like that. And just, I don't know, try something different. So I'm going to talk about these in kind of broad terms and kind of generally very quickly. So I'm not going to get into certain specifics, or I may or may not, I don't know. But I'm going to try to keep it brief because there's 14 to get through. But yeah, I just thought this would be fun. So here we go. So starting out with number 14 is going to be Gesu no Kiwami Otome and their record Maru that was put out on Warner Japan. The reason this is number 14 is because it is a compilation record, well, more like a best of one of my favorite bands of all time. They're amazing. Just, they call themselves something like post hip-hop jazz or something like that, or prog something. All those words kind of thrown together with like a hint of indie rock, I guess you could call it. And it's just really good stuff. The musicianship's amazing, and this is a record that has all their best songs on it, and I think it's got a couple of new ones, but nevertheless it's really good. But I figured it being a best of, I'll keep it at the bottom of the list, but still, like, just need to check it out. It's amazing. So if you're looking for like some Japanese prog pop rock, just all the fusion of all kinds of genres, definitely check out Gesu no Kiwami Otome. Number 13 is the Linda Lindas with Growing Up on Epitaph Records. This record I'd heard about like all over the place. They were getting a lot of notoriety, and my wife and I saw them on What's in My Bag, and it's really good. It's a lot of fun. It's got some Riot Girl to it. It's got some lo-fi but well produced, if that makes any sense. Kind of garage punk rock that's just got a youthfulness to it, and it's a lot of fun, but like there's still some like sincerity there and some heart, and it's like just, it's good songs and a lot of fun. And I think like every member sings in the band, which is really cool. So like each song kind of, they all work together, but they're still stylistically like in the same realm, but they have like a lot of variance that's really cool. And I don't know, it just all comes together to make a really fun, neat record, and definitely should check it out. Number 12, Sweet Pill, Where the Heart Is on Top Shelf Records. This is a band that I found on a list of records that came out last year, and I was like, let me check this out, and I loved it. It's really interesting, kind of mathy. The best way I can describe it is actually how they described it on their, I think on Top Shelf's page, or even on their Wikipedia, is, let me see, I'm going to read this. Evoking the specific styles of touchstones such as Paramore and Circa Survive. And that's exactly what I was hearing. I nailed the Paramore reference, but I couldn't quite place what I was hearing on the Circa Survive side, and that's what it was Circa Survive. And it's kind of in that same realm, and it's really interesting and neat and powerful, and I just really enjoyed this record, and it keeps you guessing because you don't know what they're going to do next, and that's always a fun thing for records, in my opinion. Number 11, Glacier Veins, Lunar Reflection on Equal Vision Records. This is another band that I found on a list of records that came out that I'm like, I'm looking for some new music, let me see what came out, and I love it. It's got this like dreamy element to it with some like indie emo stylings, but I think they classify themselves as dream punk, which I was like, oh, when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what this is. It's a little less punk, but like it's there, and it's dreamy, but still got like some aggression to it, some drive to it, I should say, that it's not going to put you to sleep, but it's going to get you in a good place. And I really enjoyed it, and I keep going back to it. And so it made my list. Number 10, Lands, Lotus Deluxe, Run for Cover Records. This is a group that like I'd never heard of. And again, I usually when I do these, or when it gets to be about like October, I start being like, I want to hear some new music, so let me go check out and see what's been coming out, you know, like let me see some list of like different records that came out. I'll go on my Discogs and find record labels I like and structure it, you know, by date released and whatnot. And this was a band that I found by doing that, and I checked them out, and I've had this record on repeat for a while now, and it's really good. It just was like what I needed when I needed it, and it just kind of came together, and it was great. So it's got like this kind of trip hop vibe to it with some female vocal stylings and interesting guitar work, and just got like a psych pop kind of vibe to it as well. I don't know, I really dig it, and the lyrics and the hooks kind of just like get you when you're like, oh, okay, we're repeating this, all right, this is cool, okay, I'm here. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just a vibe record, and I really dig it, and it's just very chill to put on and just relax to, and I've enjoyed it a lot this year. Well, the last couple months, I should say. Number 9, The Beths, Expert in a Dying Field, and that's on Car Park Records. The Beths are a band that my wife introduced me to. She found them, I forget how, but like then before I knew it, I blinked and we had all their records like coming in the mail, which I was like, okay, that's cool. And yeah, then this one came on, and I think we were gonna go get Thai food, and it was just okay, listening to it, and it's great. It's, again, the Beths are putting out more good work in the way that they've been doing it. They're an Australian band with that, like, I don't know, I guess I would describe it as like a very clean punk kind of band, in the sense that their guitars aren't very distorted, or if it is, it's a very light distortion, but they've got a ton of energy, but the songs have a maturity to them too, so it's an odd mixture. Well, it's not really odd, it's just that it's an interesting mixture that coalesces into some just like fun garage pop rock sounds, if that's me just throwing some words together that make sense to you or me, I don't know. So I slept on this record for a while, but then I went back to it towards the end of the year, and it totally hooked me, and I've enjoyed it a ton since. And so yeah, definitely check them out. Number 8, Band of Horses, Things Are Great on BMG Records. Band of Horses is a band that I really enjoyed their first couple of records, but I lost track of them somewhere around 2010, I think it was, after their record Infinite Arms. And just, they didn't have what they had moved a little too far from where I was like really digging them. And then finally I saw they put out a record last year, and I decided to check it out, and I'm so glad that I did, because it seems like it's a return to form for them. They kind of have the same, it's not quite the same, but a lot of the things that they did really well that I enjoyed, like a lot of the dreamy kind of Americana, slight country, but like still indie rock kind of vibes. They nail all that still, but in a slightly different way, and I think it works a lot better. And I wish they would have done this like years ago and went this direction, but nevertheless, we're here now, and this record's really cool. It's a lot of fun in the sense that like it juxtaposes some heavy stuff that happens in the lyrics, but then also some lighthearted stuff, and I'm a big fan of that. And I really love the cover, because it's just a house with some cars in the yard, and it looks like you're about to arrive at a party where all your friends are going to be. And that record kind of like, I don't know, it kind of made me feel like coming back to Band of Horses. It was kind of reminiscent of that to me. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but nevertheless, give this one a spin. I think you'll like it. Number 7, Coheed and Cambria. Hold on, I'm gonna have to read this title, because their titles are always forever long, and I want to get it right. Vaxis, Act 2, A Window of the Waking Mind. And that's on Roadrunner. So yeah, Coheed and Cambria, another band that I loved their first bunch of records. Like, I think I fell off with Black Rainbow. I was not a fan of Black Rainbow, and then I'd go back every once in a while, and it still didn't get me. Like, there was a disconnect there. Something just wasn't the same as it was, or what I loved wasn't there necessarily, or I couldn't find it. I don't know. But nevertheless, my wife comes to me and says, hey, Alkaline Trio, who's one of her favorite bands, is going to be going on tour with Coheed and Cambria. And I'm like, okay, well, I saw Coheed and Cambria back on the In Keeping Secrets tour with Thursday and Thrice. I about said Thrice, but that doesn't make sense. That's not a band, unless it is a band, and if it is, I haven't heard of them. But nevertheless, Thursday and Thrice had Coheed opening up for them, and I saw them there, and that was amazing, and I loved them. But I haven't seen them since, and so I was like, oh man, I'd really love to go see them just in general, because they would probably play some of the songs that I knew. And yeah, so I'm like, oh, and they also have a new record. And so I checked it out and I was hooked. I'm like, okay, here we are, another band that has kind of returned to some of the hallmarks that made me fall in love with them. And with Coheed, it's a lot of like really good hooks and interesting guitar parts and just fun rock and roll sounding songs that just like make you sing, scream in the car and just like get all into it and get you hyped up. And then all of a sudden you're singing all these songs about blood and like murder, and you're just like, what am I doing? But I'm having the best time. And that's pretty much my experience with Coheed and Cambria, at least the records that I enjoy. And this has been one of those records. The hooks are there. It's a fun record. It still is in the storyline, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's got the prog elements, all that fun stuff. And they branch out and do a little bit of a dance song, like an electronic song that's really cool. And seeing it live was awesome. And if you haven't seen Coheed live, you definitely need to, because they're amazing. And yeah, I definitely think you should check this out, especially if you've been sleeping on Coheed for a while, like I had. And yeah, this will bring you right back in, and I enjoyed it a lot. Number 6, Mint Green, All Girls Go to Heaven. I believe this was self-produced or released, I should say. I'm not entirely sure, but nevertheless, this record is really good. I found out about this band through my wife, who had found them on a playlist on Spotify or something, and she put it on while we were driving around running some errands. And I was like, hey, play that again. I want to hear it again and again and again. And then eventually the record showed up at our doorstep, and I'm like, oh, snap, this is awesome. So yeah, this record is a lot of fun in a way that's like, it's hard to explain. It reminds me of the 90s in a sense, where like indie rock and punk DIY kind of stuff was coming together. And then you had female sounding vocals, and they just have songs that are honest and so much potential. It's kind of like when you find a local band that is like, oh, they're going to do something. Like, there's so much talent and so much potential in these songs. Like, you still love the songs for what they are, but you can also love them as the band for what they're going to be. And that's kind of how I feel about this record. Like, the production is really good, but it's also not overdone, and it's got that charm to it that reminds me of some of my favorite like independent releases from bands before they got signed and things like that. And I just really enjoyed this record. It's sincere, it's got a lot of heart, and this is a great record, and I can't wait to see what else they do. Number 5, Elephant Gym, Dreams, Top Shelf Records. This is another record that I found going through Discogs and seeing what labels put out stuff in 2020. And I found this record. I was like, okay, let me check this out. Had an interesting cover. And I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. And the name's kind of odd. So yeah, it turns out this record, little did I know, would become my go-to record for every morning when I'm just like getting ready, chilling, and just kind of getting ready to start my day. And yeah, I love this record so much. This is they consider themselves math rock, but they're like more like, they have that in it, definitely, but it's a little bit of a fusion of like just prog and jazzy stuff and like all kinds of stuff. It runs the gamut. You never know from song to song what you're gonna get. There's kind of a through line, especially in the production for the most part, of what you're gonna get, but you could get like a weird quirky song, which is how the record kind of starts out. And then it gets into a little bit more somber, serious stuff. And it's just very emotive, and in a way that a lot of Eastern music kind of does. Like, this is a Taiwanese band, if I'm not mistaken, and they have a little bit of the same quality in songs that I would find when I would be watching Adult Swim in my early 20s and seeing like the credits roll on some anime, and I'd be like, that song sounded amazing, I need to go look that up. And that's how I found some of my favorite bands that were non-English speaking, or at least like you know, Western bands. They were more Eastern bands. And this has become one of those bands that I'm like, oh, they have a lot of those same hallmarks. They can hit those same like emotional like chord progressions that just get you like feeling stuff. And I'm like, I don't know exactly what they're saying. Now they do sing in English on a bunch of the songs, but some of them they don't at all. And I usually prefer that because I like to be lost in someone expressing a lot of emotion where I can just get the vibe of what they're portraying with their voice, but without understanding the words. There's something there to me for that, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense. But nevertheless, Elephant Gym is amazing. And I am going to be buying all of their records as soon as they... Well, this is out, but I don't think it's been officially released as far as physically yet. So yes, I will be picking this record up. And I think you should definitely give it a listen if you're in the mood for something just different and just really good. Number 4, Hazel English Summer Nights EP that I believe was self-released. Except in Japan. I think they put a physical one out in Japan, which I'm going to have to probably buy at this point. But we'll talk about this, the digitally released one. So yeah, Hazel English. They're an artist that I've really enjoyed their stuff since their first 2 EPs came out on Polyvinyl Records, and I was just enamored. I really loved their vibe, the overall sound. It was kind of like dream pop with like the shy vocals and jangly guitars, and I really dug that on the first 2 EPs. Then her next record that came out was called Wake Up, and it had a lot of that still, but in a different way, in a slightly more, I guess you could say, like mature way, or like evolved maybe. And I liked what I heard, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted from them. But lately I've found that I keep going back to that record and it's kind of grown on me a little bit more. So I'm better with that record now. But then I found out about the Summer Nights EP and I was like, oh, this is another instance of an artist going back to what I loved about their music in the first place. And I've had this on repeat today, even like just, nope, again, just repeat, just constantly. And still, I'm not sick of it, and I want to go back and keep listening to it. And yeah, I really dig it. Again, if you like dream pop with like shy vocals and some jangly guitars and whatnot, like if that sounds like anything you're into, I think you'll definitely like Hazel English Summer Nights. Number 3, The Weeknd, Dawn FM on Republic Records. So The Weeknd, I had no idea who The Weeknd was until about maybe 5 years ago, and my wife was like, oh, you got to hear this Drake song or something, and I think it had The Weeknd on it, and I was like, hold on, who's that? I want to hear more of The Weeknd. And once I did, I was enamored. I just could not stop, and I've loved everything he's done since then. And yeah, I don't know what it is, because like I don't do a lot of the things that he talks about in those songs, but the way that he composes those songs and the way that the just his vocals and just all of that just combined to make this thing that I just love, and I just can't get enough of it. And so this was a record that I was really looking forward to. It's not After Hours, which was interesting because I was kind of expecting him to go more in that vein, and there are some similarities, but for the most part, it's just it feels like a more chill record that's more laid back and relaxed and has a kind of, I don't know, just like a really cold kind of vibe to it, if that makes any sense. Kind of like how people would describe like synthesizer or electronic music as cold. It has that kind of vibe going through it, and I really enjoy that. And then having Jim Carrey do the radio announcer stuff, that was really neat, and I really enjoyed the whole radio kind of motif they have going throughout the whole record. The only thing that takes me out of it a little bit is the Quincy Jones stuff, where he does some spoken thing where it's like an interview with him or something. It's cool what he says and the context and the content of what he says, but as far as like the whole listening experience, it kind of takes me out of that whole vibe, and I kind of don't really like that. But other than that, all the songs are great. And then I heard a city pop song on there and I was like, oh snap, I know this song. And so that was really cool. So again, The Weeknd has made a record that I really love a lot, and I think if for some reason you've been living under a rock and haven't listened to The Weeknd, I think you probably like it too. Who knows? Number 2, Always, Blue Rev on Polyvinyl Records. So Always is a band that like I've heard for years, and I know their stuff and I like their stuff, but I never really deep dived on any record really. For some reason I just didn't. And then I just decided to deep dive on this record, and I'm so glad that I did because I just fell in love. Music is really cool. It's got the jangly guitars and a little bit of the dream pop stuff going on, but like a little bit more indie rock in there. And there's quirky vocals with some funny songs and then some serious songs that just, you know, come together to form like a bittersweet, melancholy kind of vibe to most of the record. It kind of gave me a little bit of the same feels that I get anytime I watch the original The Wonder Years television show with Fred Savage. I think it was Fred. Yeah. And the song that plays at the beginning, I think it was a Beatles cover, but I forget who did it. But that what would you do if I sang? Yeah, that song. Yeah. I think it's A Little Help with My Friends. Whatever it is. Anyway. That song, and watching the old film footage and stuff, all of that kind of just seems to like give me the same vibes that this record does. And yeah, I don't know, I really like it. It's a fun record to drive around to and just kind of like get in your feels for if you want to, and I've enjoyed it a lot since it came out, and I think you will too. Number 1, He Is Legend, Endless Hallway on Spine Farm Records. So He Is Legend has been a favorite band of mine for years. Like, I loved their first record that came out, and then when I Am Hollywood came out, I was just floored. I just was like, this is amazing. I love this so much. And then White Bat came out a couple years ago, and I loved that so much as well. And so then when I saw that they were putting this out, I was so excited, and it did not let me down. I've enjoyed this record so much. It's a fun metal record that just is raw and it's got some grit to it, but it's got like a ton of really funny stuff that's just like, I don't know, like Skylar doesn't take himself too seriously in his lyrics, and he never really has. Like he can, but there's also a sense of humor in there and a lightheartedness, and a lot of that also comes through in some of the vocal production, where the vocal modulation and stuff that's throughout the record kind of gives it some like levity, and I really enjoy that. The drums sound big, and just like the guitars sound really good. And I don't know, my synesthesia that I have, or at least what I think it is, because like I see record covers, the sounds sound like the record cover to me. Like whenever I hear this record, I see the black with the gold hallway and Endless, and that's how these songs sound to me, if that makes any sense. And I just want to walk down that endless hallway with these guys. Like, this is so like good, and I just enjoy it so much. So if like you like catchy hooks and really good guitar riffs and a lot of fun songs and just rock and roll, then you definitely need to check out He Is Legend, Endless Hallway. All right, guys, well, that was it. So those were my 14, I think, records that I really enjoyed in 2022, and I hope you enjoyed this, or at least it gave you something to go check out. And so let me know, is there a record that I missed that like you think I would enjoy, or that you really enjoyed this year? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, let's just keep sharing good music and talking about good art and all that fun stuff. So hopefully we'll keep doing this, and I'm going to try to start talking about individual records on the channel here in the near future. But until then, else time.